Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the one, the only FAQtual Warrior Smartcast. I'm Mr. Tran. I'm joined here by the incomparable Shannon Miles and our special guest, Manuel Rico. Say hi, Manuel.
What's up, YB?
Say hi.
How you doing, YB?
All right, so we have an interesting show for you today. We're going to be talking politics. This is where we're going to get in a little trouble. All right,
Not too much, I hope.
Insert disclaimer here. All right. Well, let's get started. So, Manuel, as I understand it, we've got a couple questions from the students, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these are about, President Trump and his policies and a lot of other issues relating to the just the current political situation, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, first off, everybody comfortable with this?
Yes.
Okay.
we're
So,
comfortable.
first thing I'd like to say, we'll add another disclaimer later. I do not actually support any particular political side. I have no dog in this fight, so to speak. So, yeah, think about that when you blame me later. Okay. So, let's take a look at some of the questions we got so far.
So there's been much talk about the new man in charge in the White House. So for this episode, we have gathered questions from our students here at YB about politics surrounding our new president, Donald Trump. And we pulled some questions asked by you guys, and here they go. So the first one is, what are the issues behind the Dakota Access Pipeline?
Okay, Dakota Access Pipeline. Shannon, you familiar with this one a bit? I mean, I've read up on it, but
I've only read a small part about the Dakota pipeline, and this it's not just Donald Trump's issue. This was coming back into the Obama administration with the Dakota pipeline, and this pipeline being routed through Indian grounds, their sacred grounds, or their lands that they've occupied for many, many years. From my understanding, they were promised that this pipeline would not be put through their grounds or interfere with any of the vegetation, or better yet, even the water system. I believe they're more concerned about the water system that's in their lands and the pipeline interfering with it.
Okay. So, what I was reading on it from some other sources, PBS, NPR, New York Times, what I found was that, okay, so we've got an issue with this pipeline that's running across the country, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it's actually going through land that's owned by the United States Army. And the problem is the land is very, very close to the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. It's an underground pipeline, and the problem is that the pipeline runs underground very, very close to underground water reservoirs that the Standing Rock Sioux tribe actually rely on. And, it's not even a question of if this pipeline will fail. Generally, all of these underground pipelines eventually rupture, and then it spills a lot of oil and a lot of contaminants into groundwater and local wildlife and other things like that. So it's definitely a big issue, especially for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, right? Have you gotten a chance to read up on this?
I just read some of it. Didn't read too much about it.
Okay.
What you guys said, it's like all I know.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, those are kind of the general issues. I mean, how do you guys feel about it?
Well, it's all depending.
Well, from the point of view of let's say business and money versus lives, I think we need more. I think we need water to survive as a people versus corporation hierarchies.
Mm-hmm.
These people who are supporting it and have money staked in it, and that's including Donald Trump, who have a stake in this pipeline, are putting people's lives, I would say, put people's lives in danger with this pipeline going through the the grounds of the Sioux Indians who are there. I get it. The protesting, and what they do not want through their lands, and water is a necessity. Now, from what my understanding is, also with the conclusion, I don't know what the conclusion is, but I do believe he did sign an executive order for the pipeline to go through.
Yes. Yeah, he signed an executive order for the pipeline to go through. Probably about a month before President Obama left office, he put a temporary halt on construction of the pipeline. Depending on what political analysts you talk to, some would say that it's either, yes, Donald Trump is beholden to oil interests, wouldn't surprise me. Others would argue that it was going to eventually get passed no matter what anyway. So this is really one of those cases where I don't think either side, Republican or Democrat, comes off looking very good because of this.
I agree. I do. I totally agree. Neither side wins this, nor do the people who live in the lands that are there where this pipeline is going to run through.
Yeah.
Once like I said, I think water is more essential than corporate businesses.
Yes, I agree. What do you think?
Well, I agree with Miles. It's depending on business or life, and I choose life. I think we do need water for us to survive. So it goes back and forth.
Yeah. For me, looking at the law, the bigger issue at play that we don't see the news discuss this, we don't see anyone really talking about this, is the actual rights of these Native American tribes. Because, Native American territories, those are supposed to be considered sovereign territories, as if they were their own country. They are supposed to be independent countries, not beholden to the United States government, even though they kind of are. That gets tricky. But the problem is that, if you assume that these are independent countries of the United States, so not part of the United States, then we just basically violated the national rights of a sovereign nation.
Correct.
If we basically accept the idea that they are part of the United States, we violated their rights as U.S. citizens. And the biggest problem I have, and this is really one of those things that it's just in American politics, we don't discuss this a lot because I think the conversation is really very unsophisticated, is we treat Native American territories as basically these things where they either belong to us or don't whenever we feel like it. And the thing is that we have treaties in place that we've agreed to for over 100 years to say, this is your land. It is your right to do with it whatever you want. If we do something that basically violates those rights, you have the right to basically file grievances and even sue us. And we're not upholding our end of the bargain in that respect.
That is true. That is true.
I mean, and this is one of those things where it's not a Republican or Democrat issue, because across the board, if you look at Republican and Democratic presidents, most of them have all basically ignored the rights of these people, the rights of an independent nation, at least that's what we think they're supposed to be, for generations now. I mean, you want to know what was the last president that actually, supported Native American independence? Nixon. Richard Nixon, signed orders into law and signed laws basically saying, no, we will recognize and respect these people's rights to independence.
I didn't know that.
No, and that's weird, right?
It is strange.
I mean, because we assume that Republicans, but it's a really, really weird situation to be in, and it's just don't believe the spin, guys, because it's not a Democrat or Republican issue. Both sides are pretty dirty on this one, I think.
Yes, I do believe they are. I'm pretty sure there's more to come on this subject as news progresses about the pipeline.
Yeah, and I mean, we haven't even talked about what's happening to the protesters out there. That's just terrible, too.
Yeah, the protesters and the people who live on these lands and what's happening to them as a result of the new executive order that has been put in possession.
Okay. Would you like a final comment?
I think you guys said it pretty well. There's nothing else to add.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next question.
So the second question is, what Trump policies are going to affect schools?
So, what Trump policies are going to affect schools? What policies is President Trump going to do that will affect schools? You know, the most honest answer I can give right now is I don't know. Because the thing is, we only know a couple things. We know that he is against Common Core. He is for school choice. And he just selected Betsy DeVos as Secretary of Education. So why don't we start with the Secretary of Education thing first, and then we'll move to those other issues, because it's a big question.
Now, from my understanding, Secretary DeVos is still being considered.
Yes.
She has not, her nomination has not gone through as of yet. Democrats are boycotting or protesting, saying no to her vote as the Secretary of Education.
Yeah.
For what they do know about her, not much.
No, because she doesn't seem to have much of a history. She's never been a teacher. She's never, been part of what it's like to be in the classroom. She claims that, I was a mentor for various schools, but it's like, okay, a mentor doesn't mean that you were a teacher.
No.
So this woman does not know what it's like to be a teacher. She does not know what it's like to be an educator in any capacity, I think.
Has anyone asked where her education comes from?
Private schools. And the thing is that, so you expect to trust somebody who went to private schools their entire life to manage all the public schools in America?
Have no clue.
Yeah. So, that's just my opinion. I'm you can say that I'm being unfair, but, I'm just going to call it like I see it. Now, the thing is, and this is on DeVos, this is my thing is, all right, so based on that, you should be expecting that her Senate confirmation hearings, which were already pretty contentious, you should be expecting that the confirmation battle, the votes to actually get her confirmed, should be very, very tough. It should be.
It should be. Yeah, you're right.
But the thing is, I'm going to say right now that and I hate to say this, Secretary of Education is not considered a very important cabinet position as far as national politics go. So it's very, very likely that, both Democrats and Republicans are going to, they're going to make a big stink about it on TV and everything. But then after that, she might be passed through very, very quickly and very easily.
Wow.
And I mean, it's sad to say, but they're going to say, okay, look, we don't want to waste time on this. We don't care. And that's the truth. They really probably don't care. And that's really sad to think about, but I think that's the reality. Like, the longer it takes for her to be passed through, that meant that the harder it was that both sides fought for this. If she basically just gets confirmed, like, inside a week, they didn't care.
Yeah. For the most part, yeah. I guess that's how it works, or it's supposed to work.
Yeah. Sad, though.
It is, yeah. Very sad.
I mean, what do you think?
On her, I don't know. Like, I was seeing it on the news and like videos online. They were asking her questions, and she seemed like she couldn't give a direct answer or right one at least, and she didn't know what she was talking about.
No, I mean, let's put it down to very, very simple terms. That would actually mean something to our students here. If she was your teacher and you could say yes or no, do you want her as my teacher? Okay, would you keep her or would you fire her?
I would fire her. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
Okay. All right. So you heard it here first from a student. It's they wouldn't want her as their teacher. And if you don't want her as your teacher, I don't know how you're going to want her as your Secretary of Education either. But all right. So let's get into this Common Core thing, because it's something that a lot of people don't really know a lot about, although people talk a lot about it. Now, are you familiar with Common Core?
A little bit.
A little bit. So, can you brush us up on it real fast?
Like the way we do the work, or?
No, I mean, what is it?
I really.
It's hard to explain, right?
Common Core, it is hard to define.
Yeah.
It has gone through some changes.
Yeah.
Lots of changes.
Yeah.
So I think the definition of the Common Core curriculum is obscured at this time.
Yeah.
It's very so. I really couldn't tell you what is in place of the Common Core curriculum anymore. Since the Obama abolished Bush's law of the No Child Left Behind laws, everything has now become just a little bit more obscure on what is it that schools should follow.
Yeah.
And what curriculum they should follow.
Yeah. So, from what I know, actually, my wife is also an educator, and she follows Common Core very closely because she wants to know a lot about it. And from what we've researched together, the thing is, okay, so basically Common Core is a set of national standards for what students are expected to know at each grade level. All right. So let's say if you were in kindergarten through first grade, you need to be able to add, subtract, multiply. By the time you're in fourth grade, you should be able to divide, long division, things like that. Okay. All right. And this applies to not just math, but also English, history, science, you name it. That's where it is. Now, the thing is that, there's been a lot of push and pull over Common Core over the years from what I've seen, because some people feel that having this big national system to decide what every student in the country learns doesn't work for all 50 states in the United States.
And also it doesn't work for every student in the United States.
No. So it's very much a one-size-fits-all solution.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard about even other teachers basically saying they don't like Common Core because it takes a lot of choice away from them on how they do their lessons. So that might mean that, they have to teach more to a test instead of maybe doing something creative.
Yes.
I mean, that does seem to be a
they
sense
teach
of
more to the test versus the other way around.
Yes, and that's one of the major things. Common Core, just like No Child Left Behind, it is about basically academic standards, but also measuring student performance through testing. And depending on who you ask, it's either a good thing or testing is not really representative of what a student actually learns.
That includes all students, including students who are in special education courses. They expect students from special education classes to do as or better than the mainstream student in all schools, which I personally think that's unfair. Personally.
Yeah. That's
just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm conflicted. I mean, I like the idea of a nationalized education system, but I've grown up around like Asian education system, so I'm kind of used to that idea. But at the same time, the thing is that you see things like in English where now instead of learning literature through reading, let's say, I don't know, Hemingway or Dickens. Or actually Steinbeck reading. Instead, what you do is, you read out of a textbook, and there are these very, very dry and very boring texts that are in a textbook, and then they teach you, how do you write a business letter? Here's how you write an essay. But I kind of feel like one of the problems with Common Core is it takes away from art,
the creativity.
Yeah, it takes
from the teacher.
Yeah, it takes away from the art. Like, how do you judge, what is an A in art?
That is, yeah. What's an
A in art? Is that fair? I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you look at a student and he doesn't do any effort whatsoever, right? Then, okay, you could argue, well, that person deserves an F. But then, we see artists who basically put up, like, gigantic paintings in the Louvre, and it's literally a blank canvas that they painted black. And it's like, well, how much of that, how much effort did that take? But then you think, I mean, who am I to judge art?
Art is subjective.
Art is subjective. I mean, yeah. You ever heard of a guy named Marcel Duchamp? Okay, Duchamp was a famous French artist. Yeah, I think he might be still alive. I can't remember. But one of his most infamous works of art is literally he signs his name on a toilet seat. I'm serious. He signed his name on a toilet seat. he took a toilet seat, he signed his name on it, and basically the thing is he puts it up in the Louvre, one of the most famous museums in the world. And the thing is that people would say, well, the art is the performance. Having the gall, the audacity to say, yeah, you see that piece of garbage, that's art.
And somebody's name on it.
Exactly, and there is a certain artistry to it, a certain boldness, but I don't know. I don't feel like judging. It's like asking, are video games art? It's, who am I to judge?
Right.
So.
Once again, art is subjective.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah. Some people could say that, Kanye West is a terrible musician. Other people can say, hey, that guy's an artist. It's not my place to judge, I think.
Ooh, no comment from that.
Well. All right, so moving on. I think the last thing is school choice on that issue. Oh, wait, sorry. Let's go back to Common Core. The one thing that is interesting in the case of Common Core with the Trump presidency is this. President Trump has openly said he is against Common Core. He does not like Common Core. He thinks it's terrible. The problem is Betsy DeVos has a history of being very pro-Common Core. I don't know how that's going to play out. I really don't know. Because, does she start implementing Common Core and then President Trump says, no, you're fired? Does she obey what he says? I really don't know there.
Judging from what's happened from the past 5 women that got fired because they defied him, she'd be number 6.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm not exactly a fan of Common Core, but I don't particularly like Trump either. I'm not going to lie to you. I would be very conflicted on this point, right?
And I understand that. I'm not a fan or a supporter of Trump either. But at the same time, there are people who support his ideas, his policies, to what end, to what, why, and what, for what reason. We know it sounds absurd.
Yeah.
Or, lack of better words here.
Sure.
But to them, it's not. It is a reality. It's their reality. It's not our reality or the world's reality. It's their reality. And they're pushing that reality.
Well, they just made that reality. He's president.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where it's as frustrating as it is. I think sometimes we just have to basically sit back and say, all right, you get your 4 years. You ain't going to get it easy, but you get your 4 years.
They're going to fight. I think the American people will fight him every step of the way.
And they should. They absolutely should. But it's one of those things where basically, look, that's the reality we're stuck with. What do? We have to basically play on the board we're put on. That's the game now. So I don't know. It's a very, very weird. It's going to be a very weird 4 years, and I think it's going to make people really question. Well, what are my values when it comes to our politics? What is important to me? These are going to be big questions. It's going to be uncomfortable for both Democrats and Republicans, I think.
Yeah. Not just for Democrats and Republicans, but
all
also
Americans.
For the American people.
Yeah. Because they have to ask themselves some very hard questions about what do they want.
Mm-hmm.
And does it matter if it's from this guy or the other guy?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
This is the part where high school students, college students, all students alike, even people who think they got it all, you don't.
Yeah.
Read your Constitution. Yeah. Make sure read the Constitution. Read the Bill of Rights. Yeah. Read the Declaration of Independence, and know it. Just know it, and you can make your determination of what's right, what's wrong, and everything else in between.
True. All right, so let's move on because we need to before I get more distracted. School choice. All right, school choice. That seems to be a big thing that he supports. I know the teachers union does not like school choice, but what is it? Do you know what school choice is? Okay. Shannon, do you know what kind of
it's very obscure to me right now.
Okay, so from what I understand, school choice is basically the idea that, okay, a parent gets to decide where they want to put their kid. All right, that doesn't sound too bad, but the thing is that, okay, so right now when you go to school, where you live decides where you go to school.
Boundaries.
There are
Lines.
boundaries. There are lines. There are territories, that you have to follow. So if you live in, the Evergreen area, you're going to go to Evergreen High School. If you live, on like the Tully area, you're going to go to YB. That's the way it is. School choice would basically say, you know what, forget that. It's not tied to where you live. Basically, we're going to give you essentially a voucher that effectively pays for your school, and you can go to any school you want.
Wow.
Now, I can see some advantages to that, but at the same time, I see some big disadvantages.
Well, see, people are doing that now. It's not. There are people who do live in certain areas where they are going to schools that not necessarily live in their area.
Yeah.
So I don't see what the difference is.
Yeah.
That it's already happening where kids are going to school outside of their districts or outside of their neighborhoods to have a better education in another school somewhere else. Now, I've heard parents say it. I don't know how true it is. And I think an education for somebody else, it's what you put in is what you get out.
Yeah.
No matter what school you go to, what you put in it is what you get out.
Sure. I can agree with that. I mean, definitely, no matter how good a school it is, if you're just going to sit there, you're not going to get a whole heck of a lot out of it. No. I've read the argument that basically, if you implement school choice, what happens is that the schools that are already in poor neighborhoods will probably be even more affected because they'll end up leaving. Because a lot of students may end up leaving. They'll have less funding. There's going to be other problems. But the other thing is there's also the argument that it makes the schools that are supposed to be in the more affluent neighborhoods massively overcrowded.
Yes.
So
and
also,
these schools that are going to be affected most likely are in poor neighborhoods where you have a lot of people of color in these schools.
Yeah, and let's be honest. The thing is, if you have this school crowd and you start asking the question, okay, well, how does the school decide who gets in? How does the school decide who gets in if everyone can choose to go to that school? You gonna have a test? You gonna basically do a lottery? Are you gonna just look at their academic records? What if a school basically says, I want to look good. I'm only taking all the students that already have 4.0s. That could happen.
It could very well happen.
And then what happens to all those other students? They have to go back to that school they originally were assigned to, and they're stuck there with even less money? I don't know.
Or fear of closing.
That could be another major factor. So the thing is, it really depends. I think it really depends on, what do you want? Do you want that kind of equitable playing field for everybody? Or do you want basically, to get what you want? I mean, it does make it seem like it's a selfish argument, but
it is.
It is. But at the same time, the thing is that, what parent doesn't want their kid to go to the absolute best school? I mean, I've met parents that literally they would rent, rooms at other people's houses in completely different areas and even different cities and put their address there just to make sure their kid got to go to that school. And that took money. That took a lot of money to do that. So you gotta ask yourself, I mean, is that fair? That rich people can do that?
No, it does not even the playing field at all.
No,
it does not. It's not fair.
So it's not fair, and it's the most honest answer I could give to that is really, I don't know if that's good. I don't know if it's bad. I just don't know. I really don't.
I think we should really, they have to ask themselves in this policy, the pros and cons of it, and what the American people, they can only implement, but it's ultimately the American people who will decide.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Manuel, what do you think? I mean, okay, you go to YB. All right, yeah. I mean, reasonably proud of where you go, I guess. You're willing to admit, to the rest of the world right now that you go to YB, so it's probably not that bad, right? Yeah, probably happy, somewhat happy, right?
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not the best.
Okay. All right. Okay. I appreciate that kind of candor. If somebody told you that, you could go to any school in the city for free, the main thing is you're responsible for getting there. Okay. Even though you know that might actually take money away from, this school, take, money away from teachers and all that other stuff, right? Would you do it? I mean, it's because it comes down to, them or you in that sense, I think.
I don't think I would, because as a student, it's your responsibility to learn. It's your responsibility to learn. So even if the teacher may be bad, it's up to you to want to learn and to want to succeed in a school place.
Yeah. So for you, it doesn't matter. Wherever you are, you're gonna make the most of where you are, right?
So it's on the student.
Okay. All right. I can see that. I can definitely see a lot of parents that basically, they're gonna say, I don't care. I don't care what happens, to all these other people. I don't care what happens to this entire city. As long as my kid basically gets the best, it doesn't matter.
I'm still seeing people of color getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah. They will. No, I mean, let's be honest. They always do.
I really do. I mean, even worse than what it is now. And we live in California.
Yeah. We got it pretty good compared to the rest of the country.
But schools that are in states like Mississippi, down south, let's just say down south, period. Kids down there are going to get the worst.
Yes. Yeah.
And I might as well go ahead and include some parts of California, inner cities in California. If you live in Watts,
Richmond,
San Leandro, Oakland.
Yeah.
I see that. Yeah, I can see that, where you got schools who are predominantly people of color closing at the ultimate, but not getting the supplies, the money, or the recognition that should go to all schools across the board.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of see it as basically freedom versus equality. You have to choose. You have to make that choice.
And it's a hard one.
And it is a hard one. And the thing is that, some people will say, no, it's not that. And yes, it is. You can't lie to yourself. The reality is that it is that choice. And it is a hard choice, and it is a cruel choice. But I think that's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't run from that, I think. All right. So I think that's all the time we have for this episode. Stay tuned for our next episode. We'll be addressing more of your questions on politics, life, the universe, everything, Trump. So stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, take care. Remember, information is ammunition. FAQtual Warrior podcast signing out.